Nashville, Tennessee. We were saying when the way it works is in the NFL is if your quarterback's not dynamic enough, you got to be careful because everybody starts blaming people. They blame the coach and the play caller, and they blame the defense, and all of a sudden the GM hears this, and he reaches on a trade. And whatever it is, and I don't care whose fault it is, but Cleveland's offense is broken. They don't trust Baker. Baker doesn't look like he trusts Baker. OBJ doesn't work. Again, I couldn't give a rip whose fault it is, but you've been in those rooms where all of a sudden, like Kansas City's got a problem, Trent, but we acknowledge where it is. It's on defense. Cleveland's offense is broken, and I don't know if anybody's going to take accountability for it. What do you see?
It's a tough one. I want to see. I'd like somebody to tell me how many games have Beckham, Landry, Chubb, Hunt all played together. Like you go into the season with certain things on paper, and then you never really get to play with all the people you've planned around. I want to see them all play together a bunch before we start writing the Browns off. I've always been a believer that you really can start hitting your stride now. They're 4-4. They've underachieved. I agree with you. The offense is broken, but I do think it needs a chance to get fixed. I do think they can fix it. I think Baker can be better than he's been given all the appropriate weapons around him playing. I think part of it is how the game's been called. Because they don't have everybody, they call a very conservative type of football. It is. I've always thought when you run the ball well and you throw short passes, that doesn't mix. Like if you run the ball well, you should take chunks. If you don't run the ball well, then you do all those short little completion plays. To me, they try to run the ball between the tackles. They try to establish that, but they also just kind of throw the short, boring stuff.
Yeah,
I'd like to see him become more explosive in the passing game. Now, if they don't trust Baker, and there's times you see them not trusting him downfield, then that's an issue. Then that's a Baker issue. But when they get both backs in the game, when they have those 2-star receivers playing together and healthy, you would think they could fix it pretty simply. Run the rock with 2 great backs and throw the ball deep. It's not rocket science. You don't need the greatest schemes in the world to realize that you have 2 guys that can take the top off the defense and make explosive plays in the passing game, especially if you're getting heavy boxes because you have 2 guys you can share the wealth with running the football.
I don't recall what your take on Mac Jones was. Mine was basically the ceiling's low, but because he's really going to a perfect place, we'll probably see he'll be good early. Whatever his ceiling is, I don't think it's tremendously high, but what do I know? But I watched the last 14 quarters, the second half of the Texans game and the last 3 games, and he's gotten out of something all rookies do, and this is what they do. They make the awful throw. About once, twice a game, you just cringe. He's kind of gotten out of that. Is he better now? Is he more comfortable? How has he gotten out of that space? Is the play calling better?
He plays the position at a very, very high level. It's professional quarterbacking. When you see these other young guys, they're playing more. They're trying to figure it out. There's a lot of street ball to it. There's a lot of wow plays and a lot of shake your head plays. You see very, very few shake your head plays with Mac. He's playing the position, especially with his eyes, as well as a 7, 8, 9-year vet. I've asked some other quarterbacks about it because I've been super impressed with him since the very beginning. His stats haven't been great, but even in the preseason and in those first couple of games, I saw a level of professionalism in his game that kind of made me take a step back. So I called some other quarterbacks, and they see the same thing. They see him using eye manipulation. You see his starting points correct. His feet and his eyes are tied together. He makes good situational decisions. I actually think he has more horsepower than people give him credit for. I'd call him a mid-ceiling guy. He's not a high-ceiling guy like a Mahomes or a Wilson, a Lamar, those guys, but he's a mid-ceiling guy. His ceiling's higher than, say, a Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
I think he has a mid-ceiling. I think his floor is super high, and that doesn't get talked about enough. He's not going to play poorly very often. In the next 10 years, we're not going to have a lot of disaster Mac Jones games that we're talking about. There'll be a handful of them, but he's not going to try to make the play that he can't make. He's going to let his better athletes on the team make those plays. He's going to get the ball out of his hand. He's going to handle the run game, protection game really well. He's going to be really good in critical situations. Again, you see a lot of these guys that have kind of phony stats. All their stats are 20-20. They stink on third down. They stink in the tight red zone. They stink in 2-minute drills. I think you're going to see Mac thrive in those situations. He's going to thrive in the critical situations when a lot of the playmakers don't play those situations very well. So I'm very, very bullish on Mac Jones. I think he has a chance to be a perennial Pro Bowler, get that Patriots team back where they belong as a consistent talking point as a championship team. And again, I couldn't say more good things about Mac Jones.
So it's interesting. Geno Smith, Trevor Siemian, Mike White, Cooper Rush, all W's yesterday. And really, you can argue they all outplayed somebody that's considered much more talented. And kind of take me to that space of being a backup. You know, my guess is with Cooper Rush, they knew midweek he was going to play. They sent Dak there to, make it look like he was going to play. But how are they all effective? Like, is it easier than we think?
Well, three of the best schemes in all of football. Maybe not the Jets. I think the Mike White was the most eye-opening one because that scheme is still evolving. But they did a lot of good things to support him. But if you look at Simeon, you look at Rush, Kellen Moore, Sean Payton, two of the best coordinators in the league, very creative offensively. It wasn't heavy lifting. They didn't ask them to make a lot of impactful plays in the course of the game. A lot of them were scheme-driven, system-driven. I also think just the quality of quarterbacking, Colin. We've talked about this for the last, 7-8 years. It's ridiculous how some of these guys that maybe you at home haven't heard about, but how talented they really are. And they get a chance to sit back and play behind really good players and watch how they conduct their business. And they play for really good coordinators who get them prepared well. There's a lot of talented quarterbacks in the NFL. There's a lot of talented quarterbacks in college football. And I'll go all the way back to the high school space. I mean, there's 50 guys every year that we see in the high school space. If they go to the right situation, they have the right people around them, that guy can play in the NFL. It's just a loaded position nationwide at all the levels. And it doesn't shock you when the guys come in that play for really good coordinators and play at a high level. Now, this has always been the thing. Can you do it for a long time?
Right.
I think Geno Smith is a kid I've always thought would be a great backup. I've always thought he's the ultimate backup to have on your team. He can do what he's doing. He can play at a high level for a period of time. He can right the ship until your starter comes back. That's really the job of the backup. Now, can these guys be long-term starters? Can they take a franchise and put it on their shoulders? Teddy Bridgewater is another example. He's gotten the starting job in Denver. I think Teddy at his best, he's a starter, and yes, he's going to win some games. But ideally, you want him backing up a Patrick Mahomes. So you have a Teddy Bridgewater backing up a Patrick Mahomes. So in case Patrick gets nicked up, you have a really quality guy to come in and right the ship. I think you have a lot of those guys. And there's nothing wrong with being that guy. That guy, by the way, makes about $50 million in his career and lives a pretty good life. So we're not knocking him, but there's still only 10 to 15 guys that can put the weight of the franchise on their back and do this for 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 years.
Trent, I was saying about the Cowboys, and I want you to go back to your 2000 Ravens team. To win a championship, you need some breaks. You need usually a rookie like Dallas. Micah Parsons is insane. Last year for the Bucs, Tristan Wirfs. Oh my God, is he the best right tackle? You need a guy that had been eroding, Zeke, to come back in shape and be great. And I watched Dallas, and I'm like, they got two things going on here that championship teams have. They got a playmaker in every unit. Every unit's got somebody. And they're getting guys who either we gave up on or we thought he's too young. And they're popping. And I watched them last night, and I'm like, if they end up in the NFC Championship, you go back to your Baltimore year. Like, we always think it's all veterans, and I'm like, I don't know. You need rookies to be great. Do you need some cheap labor? I mean, Trayvon Diggs and Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb are stars in this league. What do you make of Dallas?
I agree. I mean, you used our team. I wouldn't have brought it up if you didn't, but Jamal Lewis was a rookie and, was arguably one of the best backs in football. And then Rod Woodson, a Hall of Fame corner, moves to safety for the Baltimore Ravens, becomes the best safety in football. Peter Bulwer, a beat-up body that was still young, becomes a dominant pass rush. I can go on the formula that we had in Baltimore, and you see that around the league. I like what you said. You need cheap labor. You need your lower-paid guys, your rookies, your second-year guys to play at a high level. You need your veterans that some have maybe said are past their prime to go back and capture magic in a bottle and play at their highest level for a year or two. All those things have to happen. I also think you need an edge. And the biggest thing that sticks out to me about the Cowboys is, they kind of were just lollygagging through the league the last couple years, resting on their talent. They got an edge to them. They got There's something there with that culture where they're playing with the chip on their shoulder. That is a different vibe for the Cowboys. I watch them every week for whatever reason. I'm a big Dak fan. I like watching the Cowboys. They're edgy, they're tough, they're physical, they're confident. They don't hang their heads when something bad happens. Their body language is good. I mean, all these things that the common fans may be like, I don't know how much that matters. Well, it matters in a locker room. And I bet you their Mondays through Saturdays are a lot more intense than they've ever been before, because you see that intensity and that edge come out on Sundays.
Yeah. Trent's got a new podcast, comes out tomorrow, Beyond the X's and O's with Trent Dilfer. It's fantastic. That's why we bring him on. A weird Sunday, but that's wwhy we love this game. You just don't know what you're getting, baby. You have no idea what you're getting. How'd you guys do this weekend, by the way?
We're in the playoffs now. We went 9-1 the regular season. We're doing well. We got to finish the race this year.
Lord, you're like Mel Tucker out there, just a presence, winning games right out of the chute, buddy. Good seeing you.
Thanks, brother.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd, or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.